Welcome back. It's Wednesday, and of course that means our plant and garden expert Craig Hignight is joining us live to answer all of your burning questions.
It's Wednesday, and of course,
and Morgan forgot to. I always forget to do that. I always forget to.
That was startling.
It sounds like we're going to go out and burn the garden. They need to change that.
All right. Our first question is from Johnny, wanting to know, why are my strawberries little?
Okay. Well, right now, getting ready for next year, you should be putting fertilizer on your strawberry bed. Remember, during August and September, to go ahead and keep the watering going. That's when next year's crop is actually starting. And definitely, I don't know that we didn't have enough rain this spring, but maybe, depending on the age of your bed, it's time to go ahead and renovate. Give the whole bed a facelift. You save some of your plants and get rid of everybody else, let it start to refill in. You should do a renovation at least every 4 years.
We have Cheryl asking, are tulips perennials?
Tulips are perennial. The problem is that where tulips are native, they get absolutely no rain from the time they get done blooming and mature their foliage until fall. Our problem here is that we get plenty of summer rain, and that is hard on tulips. So if you want to make sure you're going to keep your tulips from 1 year to the next, it's a lot of work, but you go ahead when the foliage turns yellow, you dig them up, store them in the house, and replant them September 1st. That makes them truly perennial.
From Karen, when do I cut off the dried flowers from petunias and irises?
Anytime now, or when they finally get done, when they look so bad you can't stand looking at them anymore, go ahead and remove those flower heads so that they put the energy that they're making now down for next year's flowers and not produce any seed.
Mindy says, the leaves have been falling off the bottom of my banana pepper plant. What would cause this?
Well, it can be anything. One, it could be what I call the greenhouse leaves. Those leaves are not used to being outside, and it's just a natural changeover as the new leaves develop on the top of the plant. Make sure that you're not keeping the plant too wet or let it get too dry. How more ambiguous can I get? But it should be about 1 inch of rain every 10 days or the equivalent thereof out of your hose to keep the peppers truly happy.
Okay, this is a bit of a longer question from Rick. I just received a pawpaw yearling, but I'm getting mixed information about whether I can transplant it outdoors or if I should pot it so that I can bring it into the house for the winters. If it needs potted in our growing zone, do I increase the size of the pot as it grows, or do I go for the extra large pot right off the bat?
You never go to an extra large pot on any plant, but this pawpaw should be out in the garden. It takes a few years for these plants to get established. Make sure that you work the area up, add your organic matter, mulch a very large area, and definitely put, I know it's not going to be pretty, chicken wire around this. Pawpaws are very hard to come by, and you don't want some animal using it for food down the road, so always protect very young trees like this when they go in the ground.
Dean says, I've seen a lot of prickly lettuce in my garden this year. I've never seen it before.
Well, this has been a strange year. I just read an article that for over 100 years, they have been tracking weed seeds that they buried over 100 years ago. And every 10 years, they dig some up and see if they still grow. And they are still getting seeds to germinate after 100 years in the ground. So these seeds have always been there. It's just that this year we had the right weather conditions to make them appear.
That's interesting.
That's very interesting. From Lisa, can I use fertilizer on houseplants when I use mosquito dunks too, and what kind?
Well, a good houseplant fertilizer, I always say any fertilizer is better than no fertilizer, but peruse the shelves, and I personally like the fertilizers that look like sugar that you dissolve in water and then apply yourself, so that you have full control over the fertilization your plant's getting. And those mosquito dunks, what you do is you soak them in water, let the bacteria come out of the dunk, and then you use that for watering your plants to kill off fungus gnat larvae in the soil.
All right, well, we have questions from Virginia, Pam, and Gail all coming up next after the break, but keep sending in your questions to Craig. We'll be right back. Well, we are talking to our plant and garden experts, Craig Hignight, and we are going to start off with Virginia. Something is eating on my petunias and marigold in pots. What do I do, or what do I treat them with? And there are bugs under the pots.
Well, it could be that you've got, slugs that have crawled clear up from the ground to get at them, maybe earwigs. You can use slug bait right in the pot to go ahead and stop the slugs from getting to the plants. The earwigs are a little more tricky. If you find insects under the pot on a regular basis, just go out at dusk, armed with your insecticide, lift the pot and spray everybody that's there. That won't get rid of everybody because they're going to move back in, but at least you'll stop the ones that are there right then. As far as your plants themselves, 7 is a good insecticide to use directly on the plants to kill insects.
Okay, from Pam, all of the stems from my perennial hibiscus broke off. Will it regrow?
It should. Perennial hibiscus dies to the ground every year. Very seldom do you get any growth that comes from above ground level. It's all going to come from below. And don't get too, anxious. Hibiscus is the last thing that's going to show up in your garden when it comes alive this spring.
Gail says, is it too late for weed and feed application?
Pretty much. The problem being that when we finally get up into the 80s, and we're going well past that weather-wise now, all the herbicides are less effective because the weeds are growing so fast that they can actually outgrow the insecticide. And once we get to that 80 degrees mark, make sure you're not putting out anything that has 2,4-D in it, turns to a gas, travels on the wind, and damages the good plants.
Okay, from Chad, why are my elephant ears not growing? It has nibs that are green, just not doing anything else.
Well, there again, we're just now getting up to the really hot season, and that's what these elephant ears are liking. As when you start to see some growth, I would definitely, the first thing I would do is give them some root stimulator. You're trying to get that root system built up, and don't forget your fertilizer. You should be fertilizing outdoor plants probably about every 10 to 14 days Follow the directions on the label as far as the dilution is concerned.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna butcher this name, I think. Geraldine? Oh, well, she was just saying thanks for the tip to use Blossom Set on my tomato plant. It worked and I see tomatoes on it now.
Oh, that's good news.
Yes.
But Cheryl says, when is the best time to water plants outside, morning or night?
Either one of those is going to work. We try and avoid the middle of the day because you lose so much water to evaporation. And I always tell people, check your plants for needing water anytime other than the middle of the day. Morning before it gets hot, afternoon or evening when the heat is off. Plants can actually wilt in the middle of the day because they cannot physically move water fast enough to keep themselves nice and turgid. So you can get a false reading on your plants if you're doing it in the middle of the day, morning or evening, and an evening, of course, early enough that they're going to be dry before it gets completely dark.
All right, our last question. We almost made it through all the questions today. From Vicky, I'm using Miracle Grow that says feeds plants for 3 to 6 months. Do I still need to fertilize the 1st, 10th, and 20th?
Well, after the first couple of 3 weeks, Miracle Grow does have fertilizer, but it's really not enough. So once the plants are well established and starting to grow, start on your 1, 10, and 20 fertilizing. The 1st, the 10th, and the 20th. These little plants that you've got in the yard are definitely hungry.
All right, Craig, thanks as always for your excellent expertise. And you guys at home, be sure to join our Facebook Live with Craig each and every Wednesday. There you can submit your questions and be part of the conversation. We'll be back in just a few minutes.